Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dailey. I'm a young adult science fiction and fantasy author, and today we are talking about transitions. So at the very end of my last video, I asked you guys if you had any questions for me or any videos you wanted to see me make. And my good friend Jay spoke up. He asked me two questions, which I will make videos on both, but today he had asked me, how do you transition in a book? How do you write a transition? Let's start with what is a transition. Transitions are the words, the sentences and paragraphs that you use to connect your ideas together. They can be used to connect time, setting, chapters, and even points of view. Without transitions, you end up with readers who are confused about what is going on in the scene, about where it's happening, when it's happening, and who it's happening to. When we write, our stories rarely take place in one time and one place. So transitions are used to bridge that gap between one scene and the next. Transitions of time. If you want your readers to know time has passed, you can clue them in at the end of one chapter by saying when the characters are expecting to see each other next. Then you can pick up the next chapter by having skipped over that amount of time when nothing happens that's plot-worthy and continuing on there. For example, it'll take me a few days to get the potion to you. I'll see you at Steve's. Then you can open the next chapter at Steve's, and you can skip over those super boring 2 days where nothing happened, or weeks, or months, or years, and not feel pressured to make those 2 potion making days super interesting. Although let's be honest, there's a lot of story promise that can go wrong when you're making a potion. But if it's not plot worthy, then cut it, move on, skip the 2 days, and head to the next. Additionally, one last point, the more specific you are with your time, the more important it will seem to your readers, and if it ends up not being important, they will be upset with you. Transitions of place. Always spend a few sentences of your time reorienting your reader in a setting. Make sure that they know who's in it, when it is, where they are, and what the character is planning or thinking or feeling, and what's about to come up. Just kind of give a quick sentence as a reminder of what's coming. Paint out a new scene as if you were opening it for the first time, like you did on your first pages. If it's a setting that your readers already know, consider adding a new element to re-establish the scene in a new way. For example, the sweet, nutty scent of hot coffee drifted through the cold bunker walls. If the bunker is a place you've already described, there's no need to hit your readers over the head with another description of it. But a quick sentence to let them know you are back in the bunker will be helpful, and a new element like adding in the hot, sweet scent of coffee will kind of draw them into whatever plot point is coming up next. Additionally, try to avoid using the same transition over and over again. For example, his girlfriend called telling him to be at the diner. So the next scene, they're at the diner. But then his mom called telling him he needed to go home. So he goes home, and like so on, etc. The phone calls become redundant and boring. So you don't want to do that. Try to brainstorm other ways to transition things. For example, he could look at his watch, or the street lights could come on outside and he could realize that he needs to get home for something significant or important. Also, doors. If you have a lot of transitions where doors are opening and they enter a scene, and then they leave the scene and the doors are closing, and there are a lot of doors. There's just a lot of doors happening. Consider transitions that don't involve so many doors, where you can start the scene inside of the room already and end the scene still inside the same room, knowing that that character is going to go through the door at some point. Transitions in a chapter or section ending. When you end your chapter, don't think of it as a place to pause and take a break. Instead, use the opportunity to reveal intriguing information and compel your readers to turn the next page and continue on with the story. Instead of saying, Jim discovered the underground monkey idol. He knew what he had to do next. Then end the chapter, you could instead say, Jim discovered the underground monkey idol. He knew what he had to do next. He reached out and yanked the ruby gems from its eyes, but the whole room began to rumble. It was then that he realized just how far he'd gotten from the exit. The point of that is just that you want your readers to be interested in turning the next page and getting on with your story. So don't leave them off on a cliffhanger, because cliffhangers don't always work. Transitions of point of view. If you're writing something with multiple points of view, switching from one to the next can lead to momentary confusion. There are many ways to head this confusion off. One way of doing this is each character or point of view gets their own chapter, sometimes with their name as the title heading. So it's immediately obvious whose POV you are in. You can also separate POVs within a chapter by using a chapter break, like a fleuron, which is that little fancy design that's in there. Or commonly in publishing, they will use the number symbol, which is this symbol here. If you're the older generation, maybe you call it a pound sign. If you're younger, maybe a hashtag. Or if you're fancy, you can call it an octothorpe, because it has a lot of names, but it's that simple. I've always used 5 asterisks. I don't know why, but it kind of looks like a fleuron, kind of looks prettier than a number sign. And honestly, the number sign always gives me anxiety because it makes me think of math. Regardless of what you do, make sure you lock in your POV in that first line. For example, David knew he would lose the race. Mary fought her way out of the stinking garbage heap. The frigid air wrapped around Amadeus like an unwelcome tug from the ancient ice gods. You wanna come up, buddy? Locking the POV at the first sentence allows readers to place their feet in the scene with ease, so that they have the stability they need to look around the rest of the room as you, the writer, paint the scene for them. Then it's time to catch the reader up on what the character's been doing. Based off the last time we saw them, give a quick recap on what your character is working towards. What are they thinking, feeling, planning? What are they hoping for or afraid of? Well, snatching the ball from the ground didn't work, but John wouldn't give up that easy. He could climb up that scaffolding and catch it from the air instead. Despite the fact that there's caution tape and loose abandoned beams, he'd be fine. Okay, that's not a great example, but it gives you the idea of what John tried last time we saw him very quickly, and then what he's hoping and planning to do in this next scene, and bonus, even set some stakes. You can make these POV switches really clear by doing 4 things. Changing up your formatting. So maybe the android is using more robotic text. You can also change up the verb tense. So maybe one character is in past tense and one character is in present tense. Really annoy those editors. You can change up name references too. So if one POV, maybe the sister only calls her Victoria, but in Scotty's POV, he calls her Vicky, whoever Vicky is. And lastly, you can change up the voice. Obviously, how characters word things and how they speak to each other and how they speak in their own minds is all going to be different, so changing up your voice in different POVs is also going to make that really clear. The key to a good transition is keeping the reader grounded in the setting, time, and viewpoint. That way, the reader can tell what is happening in a scene, where it's happening, when it's happening, and who it's happening to. It's especially helpful to remind readers of character goals in that transition and those first sentences. That way, they can reorient themselves to a new scene very quickly and then slide right back into the plot. This is particularly helpful during stories with multiple shifts in time, place, and viewpoint. Okay guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope that this answered your questions on how to write transitions, and I will see you guys next time. Bye! The cold, nutty... No, it's not cold. Why would there be cold coffee? That's gross. I mean, iced coffee is good, I guess. Well, we're getting off topic here.